Hey guys, welcome back to another video here on Toned In Entertainment. Today, I'm very excited because not only is this my new podcast format, but I'm joined with a very special guest, the owner of Ignite Wrestling, Kim Artlip. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. It's been a while since I've done anything wrestling related, so this is kind of a change.
Now, we just had a couple months ago the 6-year anniversary of Ignite Wrestling,
In January. Yes.
and that's pretty much going to be it now after the May 2022 show then.
That's the end of Ignite as we know it, unfortunately. So I have health, it was health issues, was what happened was I have a lot of ongoing health and immune issues and mobility issues, and it was just too physically demanding to do. And 6 years, I hit every goal I ever wanted to do in wrestling except for booking Maxi Impaler. That was my one bucket list I did not get. But with her schedule, we tried.
Okay, that was definitely going to be one of my questions down the line as to anything you didn't fulfill. But what were some of the best things that you got out of running Ignite Wrestling for 6 years?
I'm going to say Serpentico. Lindsay Dorado and Serpentico. I was friends with Lindsay, met John Cruz, Serpentico, and ended up spending, almost about 5 years with John in our shows. And when Trevor Reed, Trevor was in my first show and my last show, was one of my champions. I got to publish a wrestling magazine, which was a bucket list goal of mine. We did cookbooks, we did dry rubs, we did hot sauce, we had merchandise, crazy merchandise, and custom belts I always wanted. There was just so many things I wanted to do. We did a WrestleMania week show. I got to work with Leo Rush. I mean, I could sit here all night and all the cool things I got to do, but I got some friendships and I met amazing people. Well, I met a lot of amazing people I would have never met otherwise. And a lot of us still talk. A lot of guys have moved on, but some of the people we still talk on a weekly, bi-weekly basis. And it's been a crazy long time that we've been friends.
Now, I know for me, I was a party promoter back in the early 2000s. So I knew how difficult sometimes it was to promote just a party. Hey, guys, come out, have fun, buy drinks. You're a wrestling promoter, okay? Now, there's two things you got to do. You've got to get fans in the seats, and you also have to have wrestlers have the confidence, I guess, in your product to come out. So how do you, let's go back to like the very first Ignite show that you ever promoted. Like, what is the process? Like, my mind I can't wrap my mind around the process of like reaching out to wrestlers and saying, hey, I'm starting up this new promotion, come out, wrestle for me, and this is what we're going to pay you. How does
It
that all
was
go down?
it was kind of crazy because I kind of got into it ass backwards. I had a newspaper. I was a newspaper publisher. Went to a local show that was super shitty, and I'll say that nicely. Looked at my husband and said I could do better. Lindsay Dorado was so instrumental in telling me what not to do, and where to get stuff and who to talk to. And I even went to his house one day and sat down with him with a notebook for an hour, and he just told me, don't do this, don't do that, don't work with this guy, don't work with that guy. And I was really lucky because I had Lindsay to help me out. I had like Trevor in my first show. I knew Trevor from the other company. I not only had gone to those shows, I ran sound for 3 of their shows. When their sound person skipped out on them. So I got to know some of the wrestlers, and I was also doing merchandise. So I was doing their t-shirts. So we already had a relationship, and it was kind of like, okay, I'm going to do a show. We're coming into the same area. We're going to be family friendly. And when they said their rate, I didn't argue. And it wasn't like, well, brother, you're a student, you don't get paid, or $20. It was, well, what's your rate? Okay. Because I always thought if a wrestler told me I'm a $40, $50, whatever wrestler, they knew it wasn't, I had no right to tell somebody their value. And I think that was one of the things that most people thought I was a total asshole about in the beginning. It did
Okay.
not go over well.
Now, you don't have to name any names if you don't want to, but do you know like the most outrageous number that anybody ever threw out to you as like their rate?
$800.
$800 for one show.
Sammy Callahan wanted $800. Then he dropped it to $5. He said he might do $4. And I told him, I don't know how high you are, but when you get down to the rate that I know you're doing shows in Orlando and that area for, we'll talk. And yeah, we never did set a rate. But no, that 800.
$800. Okay, that's a nice payday, right?
Yeah, this was 2016. It's like, dude, you weren't even that great back in 2016. I call him a potato because he wears that silver vest and he looks like a baked potato to me. So I like Sammy. Sammy's a great guy and he does a phenomenal job with Pro Wrestling Revolver and everything. But he was high if he thought I was giving him $800.
Now, what goes into like booking the show? Because is it like, are you thinking about, okay, the profit or the budget or who's going to draw for the show? Like, what's the number one thing that really goes into saying, okay, I'm going to book X, Y, and Z on my next show?
I'd say 80% budget. I know the budget's going to be, well, there's fixed expenses. I know what the venue be. I know what the tables, the chairs are going to be. I know what the insurance is going to be. I roughly know what I'm going to usually run for budget. There are shows that were a little higher than others because there were people I wanted to work with. I wanted to work with Jaden Newman. I wanted to work with Trip Cassidy, people from the Midwest. So I was bringing people in, Ethan Case and different people from out of state because I didn't want to be the same wrestling show you see in Florida, which has got the same 8 guys that I can drive 30 minutes down the road on Saturday night if they're not on my show on Friday night.
Now, speaking of Jaden Newman, I think
I love Jaden.
my favorite match, I'm going to put this on the record right now, at Ignite was Jaden Newman, DMC, Dante Marquise Carter, and Sage Scott in that triple threat match. That match was incredible.
I had no idea what they were going to do. And because I trust DMC. I trust Jaden. Sage was kind of it was kind of funny. Sage wanted to do the show. And he was like, I'll come over, I'll do it, and I'll try out. And I'm like, you're not trying out. I know who you are. You're Sage freaking Scott. And he ended up being in this triple threat. He wasn't even originally on the show. And I said, you guys figured out you're so-and-so's going over. Okay, I'm going to kayfabe that one. So-and-so's going over. And when they did that, threw Jaden Newman into the dartboard, I popped so hard on that match because that was it was kind of like, don't tear up the venue, don't swear, don't do that, and then into the wall. And I was like, well, that went out the window.
Yeah, but it's at a brewery, right? I mean, how can you not play darts while you're at a brewery, right?
Yeah, there was a dartboard. We could not, it was a dartboard. You got to use the dartboard.
You got to use the dartboard, yeah.
It was multi-sport. It was a multi-sport day.
It was. Now, speaking of just, being at the brewery, I felt like I saw when you first started Ignite, it was like at a gymnasium or something smaller. Right.
Our first show was Port St. Lucie Community Center. The ceiling was too low. We had no space. Then we did, I believe, 6 shows at the Fort Pierce National Guard Armory. Great venue, lots of space. We had a nice dressing room, but they went from military. They were a military police division to military transport. So the whole building was no longer rentable because they had equipment in it. We tried one venue in Vero, which was priced out of our reach. And we did a couple shows up in Orlando, which I regret ever using that building because I didn't know the whole backstory of that individual. And so I ended up going to the Chamber of Commerce. And I said, I need a building that'll fit 300 people that has 18-foot high ceilings. What do we got within an hour of here? And they said, Walking Tree Brewery. And I said, what's that? It's literally 2 miles from my house. I can be there in 5 minutes. I didn't even know it was there. It's a former World War II naval warehouse. And, we approached them and they're like, well, that's different. And but we can't have you there at night. Can you do a day show? And I was like, even better, because that gives me kids. That gives me old people that don't like to drive at night. That gives me kids. And that gives all the wrestlers flexibility to go to other shows. And we ended up, we went there in 2018 and we never left. We stayed there. We were there from 2017, 2018 on.
Right. Because every show that I went to was at the Walking Tree Brewery.
Yeah, there were, I want to say there was 12 or 14 there.
Okay.
Maybe 13, 14 shows there.
Right,
there was a lot. There was a lot of shows there.
Yeah, I think my first show was early 2019, if I'm not mistaken, or late 2018 that I went to Ignite.
Pre-pandemic.
It definitely was pre-pandemic. Yes, 100%.
We were pre-pandemic. I'm trying to remember which show it was.
I know Glitch was on the show because we interviewed him.
Yeah, that had to probably been 2018, January 2019.
Right. Okay.
Or summer 2018.
Troy Hollywood won the Ignite title that night.
That was before Speaking Out.
Correct. Yes.
So it was before, and that was in the summer. So it had to have been probably, it was either the May or the January show then.
Right. Okay. And just from that show alone, I was like,
or September. No, it was a September. He won in September.
September. Okay.
September.
Yeah. Just from that show alone, I became a huge fan of Ignite. It was my first show. You definitely won me over. Me and my wife were there every show. It was definitely like family. So we do always appreciate what you did for us, allowing us to come in. You pretty much let us have free reign, which is amazing, and we just had a great time, and we do appreciate that so much.
I always loved your setup because you always had the tanks behind you, and that always looked so cool. And especially when they started backlighting the tanks, that looked
even better with the purple lighting in the background. Oh my God, yeah, it looked great. It looked better than a wall, which is what I get a lot of times too.
A wall or a hallway, yeah, pretty much.
Yes, exactly. Now, is there any match that really stands out for you? That's like, if you had to watch one match in Ignite history, is there one that really stands? Because I gave you mine. What would you say yours is?
That's one of my top 5. I'll tell you what, Sage Scott and Mr. Grimm.
Okay.
Was a phenomenal match. Anything, I'm going to say, anything Beastly, man. I love Beastly matches. When Beastly and Ozzy got together, because I'd always had them individually. And the first time they came out as a tag team, Beastly was already the Brewery's favorite wrestler. And when they would get up on the bar and dance and drink before their matches, I love Beastly. I miss that furry little dude.
Yeah, I can still smell his armpit from my last interview there. Yes.
I would pet him backstage.
Yes. But I think no, go ahead.
I loved working with Beastly. I loved Kylan King. I loved working with Kylan King. And we had a women's 4-way match. It was Dream Girl Ellie. It was Avery Taylor, Holly Cromwell, and I just blanked on the fourth girl, Sophia Castillo.
Mm-hmm.
That was one of my favorite matches. And Avery Taylor and who's Jacy Jane now, and Kylan King had a banger match. A lot of people overlooked that match. That was a phenomenal match. And I liked anything. I loved Kelsey, Raegan, and Chelsea Durden in tag matches. It took me a while to get to the women's tag division, but once we got there, we got there.
Yeah, I just interviewed Kelsey a couple of weeks ago, and we were talking about the tag team champions, and I think as far as I know, it's only Shine and Ignite that really had, at least in the state of Florida, that's really has like women's tag team titles.
Yeah, nobody else really does it.
Right. How important was that to you to finally get those titles into your program?
We actually were going to do them prior to that, and our problem was finding, I gotta say this politely, a good tag, two credible women's tag teams. And I don't want to say that, and I'm not saying that to be a dick in any way. I did want to throw two girls together that had no chemistry and didn't make sense, because we did it once before, because we'd had a tag match once before, and we just threw four women in there, and there was no cohesion. I mean, it was a good match. I'm not saying it was a good match, but everybody was doing their own gimmick, and it made no sense. But finding a group, because we had the debut of Hell on Hills. We had Renee Michelle and Sahara 7. They were a phenomenal tag team. But we created a tag team like Eliza Hayes and Savannah Thorne. They had never tagged together, but they worked each other. So, there's not a lot of women's tag matches. So the women getting the chance to get that chemistry like the guys have is hard. And that's a big issue in Florida is them just getting the chemistry and, getting the timing and the chemistry and being able to look as polished as the guys look in tag matches.
It's so interesting. It's like going into that tournament that you had. I'm looking at all the women's tag teams and I was like, okay, I've got my money on Chelsea and Kelsey winning this. Mm-hmm. But at some point I thought you were actually going to throw me a curveball there too and have the women's titles be put on somebody else. Like, that's what I loved about your show was I could never see what was coming. Even if I was 99% sure I knew it was coming, I never knew.
The funny part was a lot of the times I didn't make the decision until we got to the building. So it really wasn't slanting one way when you listen to us on social, because I was like, well, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. Well, this person might get signed. This person's going to be there. This person can't come back. A lot of times you'd get there that day and there was somebody, I can't remember who it was. There's somebody I wanted to do a whole program with. And they're like, oh, sorry, I'm going to Impact or I'm going here. So I was like, oh, okay. Because like when we did the women's tournament, nobody knew who was winning the women's tournament. And I had a generator, number generator. And I numbered the women and hit the generator on my phone and said, okay, she's winning.
Oh,
this is the match lineup. That's who's going over.
So there's no biasy in anything.
I was not going to be accused of having a favorite on that one because everybody assumed it was going to be Aspen Rose because she'd been my first champion.
That's correct. Right.
And I put Chelsea and Kelsey together and they thought, oh, it's going to be Kelsey. It's going to be this one. It's going to be Anna Diaz. It's going to be that one. And I love and like Ruthie J. I felt so bad Ruthie J got injured in that match, but she took a knee to the head. I think it was her own knee, actually. Oh. Okay. She just landed wrong, kicked herself in the head on a slam. But that's the fun part. When they get there and go, oh, by the way, you're dropping your title. Oh, by the way, and that last show, I was like, oh, by the way, you're going to be the women's title. Oh, by the way, you're dropping this title. Oh, by the way, I changed every belt that show.
Right. Okay.
And I didn't plan on doing that until I got to the building. It was just like, we're going to change it.
You live by the moment,
And then I'm just kind of like, hey, we're out of here. We'll never be back. For all you.
Now, there was one title change. I do want to ask you about it because it kind of seemed like it kind of happened not maybe as planned, which was Leon Scott. And the Hitman for Hire?
The one where I was behind you, and when I was in that glass enclosed room in the tasting room, and I was talking to my husband. We were making sure everybody was paid. We were talking about this and merch, and I heard the announcement come over, and I walked out, and I said, "What the fuck?" Really loud, and people turned around, and looked at me, and somebody went, and I went, "Oh." Yeah, Phil Stamper had to signal me. I wasn't aware that what happened on one of the moves when Leon picked Mr. Grimm up, he tore an abdominal muscle, pulled or tore it. And he really was, backstage, he couldn't even get up off the ground. He was in tremendous pain. And they went ahead and finished the match. And he was like, do this. Okay, just pin me. He tried to go through the match, but I had no idea. And poor Mr. Grimm, and we're buddies. He's my monster. He kept apologizing for months. He would apologize to me. I am so sorry. I didn't mean to take your title. I know you didn't play it. I was like, dude, you're my monster.
Right.
But yeah, we had no plans we didn't even know Mr. Grimm would ever be able to come back. So, because he missed a January show because we knew he wasn't coming back. So we had no plan for him to be the champion.
Right.
So we had to change things up.
Because I know I've actually interviewed Mr. Grimm. I actually interviewed him like this right after he had his one and only match on AEW against Wardlow. I don't know why he's not had more, because I think he's one of the most talented.
They just ain't answering his emails, He's waiting.
He's waiting.
I don't know if you've seen him lately. He's dropped a significant little amount of weight. He's looking good, changed his gear up. And I mean, he's really focused. And I expect to see him, he's so much more trim, and he's just looking better than he's looking better than he's ever looked.
Okay, so we definitely need more Mr. Grimm out there, because I think he's one of the most talented guys on the indies. Yeah, I saw him wrestle a match at a convention against Timmy Lou Retton, and the people lost their minds for.
Well, you don't expect somebody his size to be as aerial and be doing the stuff that he does. And he's coming off the turnbuckles, he's flipping to the outside, he's doing all these power flip moves. And I thought he was a hoss wrestler. And he and I had talked for a long time. And it took me a good 3 years to get him into Ignite, because I either didn't have the money, or I was already booked, or he was somewhere else. But he always touched base with me. And finally one day I was like, yeah, come on down. And, let's just do this. So we got him down. He and I ended up we're really good friends. We still talk. Every weekend he sends me clips from his matches. If he does something really cool, I get a clip. I watch him on his gaming channel, and we trade recipes, because, I'd like to cook. I send him recipes a lot. And, he's become a really good friend of mine. And it was something I never expected, because I thought he was going to be a one-off wrestler. And I ended up getting a really good friend out of it.
You know what's so interesting about the independent scene, and I'm telling people this, I've been telling people this for a while, and that's why I've been doing the interviews at the independent wrestling shows, because I feel like, not to throw out a pun here, but it did reignite my love for professional wrestling, because during that whole PG John Cena era, and there was no competition, I stopped watching wrestling for the first time ever in my life. I just couldn't watch wrestling until I went to, again, somebody you had on your Ignite show, again, Grell Wrestling Asylum show down here, and his show.
Oh yeah, he's
which
awesome.
Had Steve Beck on the show and Anna Diaz. And the show was amazing. They won me over. They got me back into wrestling. Now, I was reading. Yes, you do have a book, and I was reading some inserts from the book today, actually, that you sent me yesterday. And you had said that you had gone to independent wrestling shows, and they were pretty crappy, pretty shitty, which is what you said. And that's what I remember independent wrestling shows as, down here in Davie, the Rodeo Arena, and they were full of old guys, out of shape guys, and one like Jerry Lawler would be there. How, in your opinion, how much has the independent wrestling scene evolved?
I think a lot of the guys have died out, though. I hate to say that. A lot of the guys that were older guys that were there that could barely move in the ring in 2015, when I started going to independent shows in 2014, 2015, they're gone, thank God. But, I got to see, I got to see Ricky Martinez, Max Stardom. Lindsay Dorado was there, Mr. 450, Mecha Wolf. These guys were the undercard guys. They were getting the shit matches, while these old guys that could barely get in and out of the ring were the main eventers. And that was one of the things that made me so mad about some of these shows, because people weren't popping for these old guys that were huffing and puffing and that. They were popping for Lindsay. They were popping for John Cruz. They were popping for these other guys, not these, 110-pound guys that, had little spaghetti arms out there that couldn't do the moves. But that was one of the things. There was a lot of people that I knew, and there was a couple that were with us the first few shows, and one of them actually ended up, because of a cancellation, wrestling Cahagas. And you know Cahagas. And Cahagas asked me, this was probably one of the biggest mistakes I ever made as a promoter. He said, what do you want me to do in this match? And I said, I want you to chop the soul out his back. And I was walking past him eating a hot dog when I said that, jokingly. So he gets this guy that I won't even say his name because he's no longer in the sport. The guy gets in there and no sells him. Cahagas is doing his move and he no sold him. First time I thought, oh crap. And Lindsay Snow was at the show. She was dating somebody and she was sitting backstage. She wasn't on the show, but she was laughing hysterically at the monitor because we had a monitor back there. And Cahagas threw this little guy into the corner and his hands went so fast chopping, I couldn't even see his hands. And all you could hear was me and Lindsay Snow laughing hysterically behind the curtain. And the guy gets backstage, he can barely get the guy over to pin him because the guy's crying. The guy's chest is swollen to he looked like he had boobs. And the guy says to me, can I go ahead and leave? Can I get paid and leave? Because I'm hurting. He got on his motorcycle, rode off with 2 ice packs on his chest, and I never saw the dude again at a show.
Wow. Okay.
And my husband's in the other room. I know my husband I heard my husband snort. My husband knows who I mean.
Right.
And he was one of those dudes that came to me and says, I will buy your cruiserweight title if you let me win it. I said, why would I let you win it? You've never won a match and you're not even mid-card hardly. Why would I put you in a main event and give you a title? Well, I'll buy the belt. And I was like, this is what the hell is wrong with the Florida indie scene. People buying belts, owners putting the belts on themselves. And you know what I'm talking about. I mean, promoters playing roles and mom and dad's paying for shows instead of, learning to be a freaking promoter. And I got very angry at the indie scene for a while. And I had one individual down in South Florida that called me a money mark that wanted to sleep with talent. And I was thinking, why would I want to sleep with a talent? I'm married. I have an awesome husband. I got into it because I wanted to do memories. I wanted to create something that would last past me and something that people would remember. Because everyone can forget a lot of things, but you never forget the first time you saw Jimmy Superfly Snuka come off the turnbuckle. You never forget your first match. You never forget the first time, Andre the Giant was power slammed. That's the shit you don't forget. And that's what I wanted to do. I didn't want to do it to stroke my ego and be on a poster. I never was on a poster, actually. But I wanted to have a legacy. I wanted to create memories. And I wanted something that was going to still be there that people would talk about years later.
What would you say you would want if there was anything you can change in the indie scene? What would it be?
I would get Chase and Ransom F out of wrestling.
You mean the guy that was seen on Peacock, right? Advertised. The guy that was advertised as seen on. Oh no, that was the other guy, Teddy Hart.
No, that was Teddy. That was Teddy Hart. I will not even watch that. I'm sorry, cat breeder. I ain't watching your crap.
Yeah. Well, I did watch it this weekend with my wife.
I couldn't.
Yeah.
I will not give them the viewership numbers.
I do not blame you at all. I try to explain a lot of things to my wife about the past and what's going on because I showed her the flyer. She didn't understand what was going on. And that CR guy from the dojo was actually did an interview during that and how their friends and pedophiles discuss me. If you're
when we first started, and I'll explain the story because a lot of people misunderstand. When I first started, I had certain people that told me this is where you can get a ring. At that point, Trevor wasn't renting rings. Okay. It was only Israel Cantu and this other company. And so Israel never got back to me. So I was renting the dojo ring. But if you call dojo, this is what's misleading because they are scumbag people. You don't hear his voice. You hear the living legend, Larry Zbyszko. When you look at their flyers, it's Scott Hall and the living legend, Larry Zbyszko. Everything says Larry Zbyszko, but it's not him. They live in a house together. Whatever they do together, but it's very misleading. And you think that you're working with somebody when in fact you're working with the king of pedos.
what would you say to somebody that, you know, hasn't gone to an independent wrestling show? What are they missing out on? A good one.
A good one. It's a bonding experience. You can yell. It's totally acceptable to chant, to scream, to yell, to eat junk food, to buy stuff that you probably shouldn't buy. And yeah, it's a great bonding experience. It's an escape. I've always said wrestling is an escape. You can forget about everything, and you can just go and just watch two guys just kick the crap out of each other, or two girls, whichever that match would be. But it's a fantastic escape. You don't, if it's done well, it's an amazing thing. I love watching, like, Kelsey. I love watching Kelsey trash talk. I love watching Dream Girl Ellie just chop the crap out of people. For me, it's 2 hours that I unplug and just enjoy myself. And I watch most of the matches at my show. And there's some people that I never miss their match. And you see me wandering around, and I have cameras where I can see. But for me, that's the shortest part of a show, is the actual show. And then the depression starts because I show hole. And then everything starts again. But, for those 2 hours, I don't really know what's going on, because I don't tell them everything to do. It's like, please don't everybody super kick, I don't want to see the same move. And the guys are really great, because they'll say, can I do this move? Can I do that move? Can I get on the bar? Can I do this? Can I do that? Can I throw a beer on somebody? Yeah, whatever. But, it's just, I can't even tell you. I mean, it's an escape. And if you can take your kids, especially, that was the thing I loved. I loved watching families watch it together. I loved watching the parents watch the kids yell and cheer and boo. Because it's just, they get to be kids.
Now, when you book wrestlers, you're booking heels, you're booking faces. And I'm going to ask you about one of those particular wrestlers, Dream Girl Ellie, that you just mentioned right now, because I asked her one time, I'm like, I see you at different shows. And sometimes you're the Dream Girl Ellie, and you come out and you laugh and you smile. And sometimes you just want to flip people off. And she said, it really just depends on what side of the bed I wake up in the morning. That's all it is. So how did you go about, like, trying to book Dream Girl Ellie as a face or a heel?
I never booked her as a face or heel. When I booked Blanco, or no, I'm sorry. I said Blanco. I'm sorry. Justin. I said the thrill seeker. When Justin and them came down, she originally came down as manager for Joey Osborne and the thrill seeker, Justin Blacks. And she was a rough baby at that point in the matches, because she cheated a little bit, but she looked really cute in a cheerleader outfit. She looked adorable. But when she wrestled, she flat out said, hey, I'm a heel in Florida. Okay. I want to be a heel. Fine. And, we had this bartender, and I'll tell this story. We had a bartender that wanted somebody to throw a beer at him. And I asked the different wrestlers, and they were just like, I'm sorry, I don't drink. I don't do alcohol. And I asked her, and she goes, she just walked over and nailed him right in the face. But, she had no problem being a heel in Florida. Certain people in Florida are only heels. Serpentico, John Cruz. Well, everybody knows John Cruz.
Everybody knows John Cruz, Serpentico. Yeah.
John Cruz was John Cruz until he started doing Serpentico in 2016. In 2017, he says, I think he did maybe one more match for me. He said, I want to be Serpentico from now on. So from then on, he was never John Cruz for me again. He was always Serpentico. And it was funny because he is such a dick. What he would do is he would do his match as Serpentico. He would change and come out and stand behind people by the bar and trash talk what a horrible wrestler Serpentico was. I'm just over there like, I'm like, oh my God, dude, really? But he'd just get near a table with people and be like, oh man, that mascot, that guy ain't even believable. He's sitting there drinking his beer, talking trash.
And then you're going to see how easy people go along with stuff like, oh yeah, that guy was
Oh
trash. He
yeah, and
was
they were just
garbage.
agreeing with him, and I'm sitting there just, I gotta walk away, dude.
It's so funny because now, he's contracted with AEW. So every
Yeah.
once in a while on Dark or whatever, Serpentico wrestles a match and John Cruz wrestles a match in the same night. I find it
Yeah.
interesting on the same show or back-to-back shows. And it's kind of like,
Well, and that's a lot of some of that is pre-taped, and
correct. Yeah.
and I think they change the order up sometimes. But it just cracks me up because I mean, he's just so funny. And people would say, well, you know, um, you know, what's he going to do? I never told John what to do. I never knew what John was going to do. I never knew what he was going to do with Serpentico. And one of the funniest things one of the funny things he did was he actually threw a chair. It was a 4-way match. It was Troy Hollywood. It was a number 1 contenders match. It was Troy, Ethan, Serpentico, and I can't remember the other person. Maybe it was a triple threat. But he threw a chair. It was Jason Cade. He threw the chair at one of them and it bounced off and it hit a guy sitting behind the ring holding a beer, shattered the mug in the glass in the guy's hand. Didn't hurt the guy, just shattered the thing. And he never missed a beat. Oh, yeah, beer, and just kept right on wrestling. And I run over there thinking, oh my God, there's going to be blood or everything. And the guy's like, I would like such and such beer. I'm like, you got it, dude. But he never even skipped a beat. He just yelled, oh, yeah, beer, and just finished the match. But I was like, I hate you, John. I said I was having a heart attack. I'm like, thank God we have liability insurance,
Yeah, I was going to say, I think that's one of the things that's mandatory, right? You got to have the liability insurance.
Some companies do it. A lot of companies don't. It depends on the venue. I know a lot of companies skip it. It was a requirement of our contract. We had to have it. So we always carried liability insurance on our shows.
Now, as a promoter, just in general, I'm assuming it's got to be challenging an owner. Do you think as a woman owner of a professional wrestling company, I mean, I don't know any other women owners in Florida. I might be wrong. Did you think that you faced more challenges than maybe men did owning a company?
In the beginning, I had some people that we would go to events we went to other shows to try and look at some wrestlers that I wasn't familiar with. And my husband would always drive me because I'm a shitty driver after dark. I'm not used to driving in the dark, especially to go to Orlando in traffic at night. I'm blind. I cannot see for all the headlights. So we would go to different shows and we would, walk up to talk to somebody and they'd start talking to my husband and my husband would be like, why are you talking to me? She owns the company. I thought she was like your secretary or something. I was like, well, I know he's not getting booked. And I tried 2 different shows in two different cities to talk to a certain wrestler. And both times he blew me off. He would talk to my husband or he just the second time he just walked away from me. Because I was just like, I'd really like to bring you in. This is the date. What's your availability? And he just walked away. And then he come back about 6 months, 9 months later. And he's like, hey, I want to do that. I see you're doing a tournament. I want to be in the tournament. I was like, call my secretary. No, I'm not booking you. You blew me off twice.
You know what, Kim? That's one of the things I really, really do admire about you and love about you is you don't take no shit. If somebody steps on your toes wrong, I like it because I feel like I'm the same way with doing interviews too. Like I send messages to people and I see that they read the messages on Facebook and they don't reply. And that's fine. If you don't want to do it, you don't want to do it. But then at a show, I've had somebody come up to me and say, hey, when's my interview? You sent me a message. I'm like, that was like 6 months ago and you never replied to me.
Yeah.
So I move on. Guess what? I've got guys right now, especially, Ozzy Kilmeister, my third interview with Ozzy Kilmeister. He says, dude, anytime you want to interview me, you just hit me up. We'll do it. Boom, we did it. And I have a bunch of, his buddies that we all from the asylum and we're like family and they're hitting me up all the time. And they're like, hey, when's my next interview? When's my next interview? When can we do it? There's enough people out there. If you're not I mean, I guess you probably think the same way or whatever, that there's enough other people out there. If you're not doing good business,
Yeah.
ain't nobody got time for that, right?
And that's the one thing I like about Ozzy. We were invited. It was coming into that brewery festival that we did, the beer
Oh,
fest, which I did not do the graphics. I still to this day hate those graphics. I don't know who did them. They suck. But they invited us to come to their trivia night. So I called Coach Teacher and Ozzy. I said, hey, I'll pay you guys if you come up to trivia night. They came in costume and character and did a whole bit at trivia night, and it was wrestling trivia night. And they came up. That's the one thing about Ozzy. Ozzy he was there. Him and Derek, Coach Teacher. If I needed them, because they're the two closest wrestlers to me, because they're in Port St. Lucie, Jensen Beach area. If I needed them, they were there. And that's a thing. And I love Ozzy. I love him to death. He's a sweetheart. But he doesn't have that. He doesn't have an attitude. You like, I need you, or can I interview? Can I do something with you? And he's like, whenever I can do it. And there's not enough people like that in the sport. There's a lot of people that are just like, I'll see these people that will go, I want to do an interview. I want to do a podcast. I want to do this. And I would refer them to podcasts. The podcasters would reach out. Your girl or boy never got back with me. Okay, send them another message. And then they no-showed me on the day of the podcast. They never showed up, never messaged me. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not going to be the middleman no more. I cannot be the middleman. If you're not only making yourself look bad, you're making me and my company look bad. I'm not putting your name out there if you don't have enough professionalism to follow up. And I said this, I've said this for a long time. I couldn't have been a wrestling promoter when I was younger, because I think I had to get into my 50s to do it, because I had to get that maturity and I had to get my cranky ass attitude to be able to do it. Because I think if I would have tried to have done it earlier on, everybody would have run over top of me. I wouldn't have had the confidence to say something or stand up or say no. I would have been like, okay. And I did that my first couple shows. I overbooked. I did too many matches. I had people I probably shouldn't have had there, because it took me a while to find my voice and everything, because I didn't want to be a character in the show. I really didn't. Sometimes I would pop into the early shows and I would do, some backstage stuff and some little interview stuff, but that wasn't the role I wanted to have. I didn't want to be Vicky Guerrero. I love Vicky Guerrero, but I didn't want that role. I wanted to run it and book it, and because I was a project manager, I wanted to do that part of it and the social. I don't mind talking about it and going on podcasts, but yeah, this ain't the body you want to see in spandex,
So speaking of not being a character, which I will admit to, 99% of the time I did not see you in a character, but there was one time you were in character, and it was during one of my interviews when I was interviewing Task Force, and we had Mikey Spandex, we had DMC over there, and you were giving them check marks and they weren't sure what they were. Now, if you were to evaluate Mikey Spandex and DMC after all this time, are check marks a good thing or check marks a bad thing? Because they were confused.
They were a bad thing that day, because they were on my shit list that day. I'd never worked with them. It was the first time I'd ever actually met the two. They showed up clowning around, was handing out stuff, and I started chasing them through the audience before the show, because they were handing out things to get haircuts for Marquise. And I'm just like, get in the locker room, and I'm chasing them, and they're running and screaming. And that went on the whole day. And I love those guys. They're awesome. And I learned a lot. I learned a lot from both of them. They gave me a lot of really good feedback. They gave me a lot of good advice, bouncing ideas and, match stuff. They're great guys. But I'd never met them before. And that day, for some reason, it was just like, yeah, okay, no.
Those
And
guys definitely have a lot of energy and a lot of
yeah,
personality to them.
yeah, we had nothing planned, and we just started. They started on me, and I just retaliated on them all day.
That was definitely, it's still one of my, like, whenever I go to do like highlight reels and stuff like that, I feel like that's a clip I have to throw in there because it was so impromptu. I love that you kind of just came into the interview, shook things up a little bit. They had a great time with it. They played off with it. And now, DMC is obviously doing his things. I hope big things for him. And of course, Mikey Spandex is
Yep.
now Marquise Hamilton, a referee on NXT, doing his thing over there. And those guys.
Yeah,
are definitely doing
I
awesome
don't get
stuff.
on Mike a lot. I used to in the first year, and I got really mad at one show. And I had two sheriffs. I had the St. Lucie County Sheriff and the Indian River County Sheriff with their kids at a show, and we were behind time. We were late. We had too many matches. Ethan Case and Martin Stone were going back and forth, and I grabbed the microphone off of one of them and said, "Get the back in the ring and stop the match." And I looked over and I have two sheriffs, and they're like, "Really, Kim? Really? Family friendly?" And
I was going to
like,
say family friendly show, right?
sorry about that. That was the last time I swore in a show. Well, on a mic in a show. I swear all the time at shows. Everybody knows it.
What would you say the biggest lesson learned has been doing Ignite?
Never say you're family friendly at a show, because I was talking to a reporter at a show. I was like, yeah, we're family friendly. It was Leon Scott and Hunter Law, and Hunter Law yelled, "Want to see a murder?" and kicked Leon in the head. And I was just like, yeah, I've never worked with these two. This is the first time I've worked with these guys. I don't know. Yeah, never. The one thing I can say is never have any preconceived idea of how things are going to go, because you never know what's going to happen. You were at the match, Leon Scott, Victor Andrews.
Correct. Yes.
Victor went to dive out the back of the ring onto Leon, caught his foot on the rope. He never actually made it to Leon. He just went flat onto the concrete, got up and just popped up and did the rest of the match. Scared the daylights out of me. You never knew what was going to happen. And we were very fortunate, except for Leon tearing the abdominal. We never had a serious injury in 6 years. We had one guy that bumped his head on the railing on the outside of the ring and had a cut right there and bled. And that was the only, other than that, some, bumps and scrapes, but nothing major. And yeah, that was one of the things that I was so thankful for, because you never knew when somebody was going to miscalculate or just land wrong.
Now, I know wrestlers have to send you like their music requests, for their entrance. I see you're laughing already because I saw a situation one time and it was pretty funny. And I know you have to hound them down for their music requests. What happens if a wrestler? Oh, okay. Well, you don't have to hound them down. You ask them what happens when a wrestler doesn't provide the music that
if they don't provide your music, I have an ongoing threat. Because I would ask weeks in advance, give me your music, give me your music, give me your music, give me your music. Because I had one particular person, and I won't say who it was, that always wanted to change her freaking music as the show was starting. Can I change my entrance music? You've been sitting here for 2 hours.
You did say her, right? You did say her.
It was a girl.
Right, because I know what situation you're talking about. Okay.
You cannot change your music. The show's already started. Well, can't you just download it on your laptop? The show's already started. No. So my ongoing threat was, if you didn't give me your music and by showtime, and I've asked you, bring your music. We're on the PA. I don't have your music. I've messaged you. I've texted you. If you don't have your music, you will come out to the lamest entrance music in the state of Florida, which is JB Cool's entrance music.
JB Cool.
And I did that to Timmy Lou Retton in a show. And he goes, "Where did you find that music?" I warned you, dude. I ask you for music.
It only takes 30 seconds to send you a song.
Yes, send me a link. Well, we changed his match and he wouldn't give me a song to use. And I said, "You're coming out to that." And he was like, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, because the particular situation, I'm not gonna say the wrestler's name either, but my wife and I were sitting there, and I remember hearing you running around that day, frantically trying to get everything together for the show. And you're like, I remember you saying, "Well, she hasn't sent me the music. She hasn't sent me the music." And my wife and I are sitting there, and it was like silence. It might have been silence, or it was very odd. And I remember the wrestler looking around. And I told my wife, I was like, Kim was asking her for the music, and I'm guessing she didn't send in her song in time for her entrance, and she just looked completely perplexed when it happened. I'm like, oh, it takes 30 seconds to send your music request.
Well, can you rip it off of YouTube? Well, number one, I have to go get the program that's not necessarily on my laptop at the show to do it, and then I have to download it. And we did that at a show. We did sound at a show, a benefit show. We weren't involved in it, but we were at a con. And the guy that ran the con was ill prepared. He was just going to play YouTube clips off of his phone onto a speaker. And I said, you know what? I got my laptop here. We'll go get our speaker. We'll help you out. And it was, I think it was Omar Amir. And I downloaded the explicit version of the song at a kids cancer benefit show. And it started playing, and he's like, stop it, stop. I can't stop. Just let it go.
Right.
Go. We're already past it.
It's done. Yeah.
I did not know that there was an explicit version of it. He just said 4 words. I typed those 4 words into YouTube and I played it. And I picked the explicit version. I was or no, it wasn't Omar, it was Saeed Al Sabah. That's who it was.
Okay.
Yeah, his entrance music. They were both on the show, but it was Saeed. And they're just, everybody's looking at me. I was like, all right, you know what? It's already done. Just go. Sorry.
Yeah.
I'm really sorry about that.
So now that Ignite is wrapped up, is there any inclination of maybe having a reunion show once a year, or is it done?
Done.
Done.
The pipe and drape are gone. The only thing left is the sound system and the belts. The audio files are gone. I have the video files, but we pulled down our YouTube channel mainly because our YouTube channel turned into a lot of people making weird, nasty, crude comments and spamming us on the videos, and then posting our videos into Pornhub and to the gay wrestling or the gay boy things. And it was very strange. And I was just like, you know what? I'm not doing this. I'm not going to sit here every day and pull this garbage off of, and it was disgusting stuff. I'm not going to sit here every day and filter it. But no, it wasn't a decision I came to lightly. But honestly, I was ready for a change. And I think I was, a lot of it was, and you've seen me over the years. Some shows I have a cane. The last show I was wearing 2 knee braces. There's some shows I have a back brace. When I would get home from shows, a lot of times my husband would say, go, I'll finish cleaning up, I'll finish packing, go on home. I would get home and get in the bathtub and just lay in the bathtub and cry because I was in so much pain. And it would take me, it went from being like a day or 2 to recover to being a week that I was limping and could barely walk. And they're physically draining, show days are. And people are like, well, have more people do more for you, but there's a lot of stuff that other people can't do. I had people that started running sound for us. I had Justin Shelton was helping Jeff on setup. Different things we were doing, but I still had to be moving around and making sure stuff was done and making sure that everything was working. And Sticks and Phil and Matt Grafer were fantastic with the ring stuff and everything. But I'd be typing up notes for them the night before the show and sending to them. There was just a lot of stuff, and it just got to the point I physically couldn't do it. Between I have vasculitis and psoriatic arthritis and a lot of the medication they have me on for that, along with 4 herniated discs, and I tore both meniscus on both knees before the last show. Just getting through that was it just got to the point that it was like, why am I doing this? I was resenting. I resented the last show we did. Because I was just in so much pain. I mean, I had a great time, but physically my body was like, I can't do this. And I just got to the point when I sat down and I talked to the doctor, and they're like, you got to do this, you got to do that. We're going to put you on this medication. It's going to suppress your immune system even more. You need to make changes. And that was like on a Thursday afternoon. And I talked to Jeff on Friday, and on Saturday morning in July, I'm done. I can't do this. I cannot do this. I'd already started planning the September show, and it was just like, I can't do this. I'm not going to be in a walker for that show. I'm not going to, I'm not going to, I can't do it. And I can't touch people. I can't trust people to COVID test. We had some issues with the COVID testing and lies and shit. And I know that's a whole other drama. Being around the crowds was an issue for me, to be around the crowds. And, I started this 7 years ago, 6 years of shows and a year of planning. And I was ready for something else. I did everything I wanted to do. And a lot of people didn't understand that. I love wrestling. I will always love wrestling, but I didn't have anything else left I wanted to accomplish. And I'll tell you what, running a wrestling show it's hard on a marriage. It's hard on friendships. It's hard financially. And I just didn't have it in me anymore.
How hard is the balancing act? Just with, I'm a married man now too. And I know, thank goodness, my wife, you see her, she's at every show. She supports what I do. But I always make sure that it's a balancing act of, like, I don't let this come before her in our life. I said, listen, I get up in the morning before she gets up to edit videos. I work around it. She's on a work call right now. I have this Skype interview right now. How hard is the balancing act? I mean, your husband is a fantastic person. I've met him. He's always been there at the shows working for you. But what's the balancing act like?
The thing is, a lot of people don't understand this. On the day-to-day running of the company and everything that goes into everything prior to show day, Jeff is not involved in that. I will tell him what I'm doing, but all the video editing, the graphics, all that, the budgeting, everything, the promoting, the networking, all that's me. Jeff basically, he's there for me. He's rubbing my back. He's using the Theragun on me. He's had to kick in money when I was short. And, but he made sure everything was set up. He handled the money on show days. He handled the merchandise tables. He did the setup. He did the cleanup. He was always there. He had my back, but everything else was, and that's why that's kind of the irony of that book title, One Woman Army. I had people that I tried to work with. I couldn't rely on graphic designers. I couldn't rely on the video editors. It was easier for me to do stuff myself. And I think that's a lot of the reason why I ran myself into the ground, because if I did it, I knew it got done and I wasn't waiting on someone else. And, I couldn't continue, how to say this nice. I couldn't continue to destroy us financially and myself physically and expect my husband to support that. He'll even tell you it upset him watching me struggle every show to get through them physically, and and crying and just being stressed out. And there was even one show we had a bunch of issues with that I ended up in the hospital afterwards. I was just so overwhelmed and sick from it. It's hard to watch. I know from his viewpoint, it's hard to watch somebody struggle like that. And if you're not, there's a point where you just have to say, I have to choose my marriage and I have to choose myself. Um, it's not worth doing a show if I'm going to destroy everything else in my life.
When I go to these indie shows, I always look around and I'm very observant. And I'm like,
Mhm.
well, this show has this many people in the crowd that paid X amount of dollars. And I know the wrestlers are getting paid X amount of dollars. How difficult was it to not be in the red? And what things did you have to do other than, sell tickets to make it even or in the black to, let's say, to stay out of the red?
Well, I didn't work the stripper pole. I had an ongoing joke that I was going to do a reverse OnlyFans where I kept my clothes on. You pay me to keep my clothes on.
I'll just keep putting shirts on.
I will just keep putting shirts on. The more you give me, the more clothes I will wear. And one of the things that was kind of different about us, about Ignite, was we had a very diverse merchandise line. The dry rubs, the hot sauces, the shirts, the doormats of all weird stuff. We
I
had
have
Etsy,
one over there. Yes, I
yes,
do.
and
Yes, I
the
do.
Etsy store, and all the streaming platforms. I diversified, and most people either had sponsors, which I sucked at getting sponsors. I'll say that honestly, I sucked at getting sponsors, but I was really good with Etsy. I was really good with with the hot. I was really good with the hot sauce.
Again, I have like a third of a bottle left over there.
I was really good with the hot sauce, and then there was the popcorn seasoning. Then there was the dry rubs, the keychains, and they're actually behind me. I still am selling keychains and jewelry and earrings. We had at one point, I think, 12 different streams of income coming in because did we never did well in pre-sales. Pre-sales was we did probably, I would say, 3/4 of our money, 2/3 to 3/4 of our money came from the actual door. But we got to the point that because we were on Pivot Share and we were on Title Match and we were on Fight TV and we were here and there and all these other places and YouTube, that between that and other things that we were doing, that we could pay for the show, pay for the wrestlers, and then we weren't always relying on the door to pay the wrestlers. And that's the bigger problem with a lot of the promoters. There's a guy down, and I won't say his name. There was a guy in South Florida that did some shows, and I know he had a family member that got him the venue and everything and helped him out. But he said to a friend, if I have to have 300 people here to break even on his first show. And I'm thinking, she ain't getting no 300 people in South Florida, number one. And he couldn't understand, well, there's all these wrestling fans. Well, you're not promoting it. You're up against every other event. There was a concert, there was a football game, there was this, there was that. We always had to be very cognizant of what else was going on in Indian River County that day. We had one show that we did that they had micro wrestling at the fairgrounds, which was about 5 miles away. They stood on the corner around from our venue and waved a sign during our show. And we had people that got confused, went to their show thinking it was our show at the fairgrounds. And they were like, why are they all little guys? And they're like, well, that was another show. But we couldn't go against any of the major festivals. We couldn't go not during the fair. You can't do a show during this. And a lot of these promoters aren't even thinking about what else is going on. I would not go against Sunfest. I would not go against impact tapings and all this stuff. That stuff's out months in advance. You got to be smart how you book and what you book against. You don't go against the Frog Leg Festival, which is up here. You don't go against the Firefighters Festival. You don't go against this. You don't do a show the same day as a Christmas parade, that's at noon. It's just common sense. And a lot of these people don't have common sense because they're not thinking, that was a big complaint we had. We originally did Friday night. I think we did Friday night shows, but we were against football. So we couldn't get the football fans. We went to Saturday day and we drew far better Saturday noon than we ever drew doing a night show.
Mhm.
And we did night shows for the first 9 shows. And we never drew the numbers that we drew doing a noon show.
I love the noon shows because I was home it was a 2-hour drive for me, and I was 12 to 2:30. I was home by 4:30. It was fantastic. And then I still had my whole evening to, do whatever. That's, again, one of the great things I
4 o'clock,
loved about it.
I was eating Chinese
It
every
was
show.
amazing. It was amazing, right?
That was my routine until we started going to a wing place with some of the guys. But that was my thing. 4 o'clock, I'm in a bubble. I come out of the bubble bath and I'm eating Chinese. It was always a bubble bath after the show. But yeah, I mean, I had some guys that came up from Stewart, 4 little old guys. One of them passed in the last year and a half, but they were with me from the very beginning. And when I was in Fort Pierce and Port St. Lucie, it was great. When we went to the noon shows, that was it for them. They loved it because they would get up, they would go to Perkins and have breakfast. They would leave from Perkins and Port St. Lucie, come up, get their coffee. They'd be the first ones in the building. They'd sit there, they'd watch the show, then they'd go have dinner at Perkins on their way home, and they were back in the house at 5:30.
Loved it. Now, obviously, I mean, Ignite 2022, you're closing your doors. There's been 2 other fairly well. I mean, definitely one of the organizations is really well run out of Tampa, GCW, Generation Championship Wrestling. I'm a big fan of what Gomez does out there. ARW has closing their doors as well, too. What do you think the future is for the independent wrestling scene here in Florida?
I think we're going to see a lot more coming from Fest. I think we're going to see a lot more. We have a new company, and I think I don't know if I mentioned that to you.
You did mention something to me.
WWC, the Lucha Libre Puerto Rican company, is coming to Port St. Lucie in February, March. So that's going to be fantastic because that's going to be people that we're not used to seeing. And I'm a big Lucha Libre fan. I think we're going to see a lot more coming out of Tampa Bay Pro. I think we're going to see a lot more coming out of Mayhem on Mills, which I think is a phenomenal company. USWA up in Jacksonville, DCCW. I'm not worried about the future of Florida wrestling. I think it's awesome that I wasn't aware some of those companies were going under, but I think that it's going to be an awesome time. And I think we're going to see a return back to more family friendly wrestling because the companies that are left, except for Fest, I know DCCW and USWA are more family friendly. And I think we're going to see a lot less of the ridiculousness of wrestling. And it's like it goes in a cycle. Every 5 to 7 years, there's a whole new crop of wrestling companies that come out, and I think we'll probably see some new ones.
Okay,
but I think it's going to be good. I think it's going to be good. And having AEW down here taping, and having the Performance Center, and Ring of Honor and Impact, I think we're going to see a lot more people that are more serious, and they're going to be working harder to get that recognition, and not so many just doing shows to do shows.
I love it. I think once you start throwing out all those names, I'm like, you know what? It's pretty healthy. I think we're going to be okay down here.
We had 65 active companies at one point in Florida. Wow. Speedy Ruiz did a list.
Okay.
And at one point there were 65. And I've lost track of how many companies that started before or after me that are already gone. But a lot of them, mommy and daddy aren't paying the bills no more. And and whatever else they were doing to make money just ain't working. But it's a cycle. It goes in a cycle. And I think Fest is going to be around for a while. Shine is not going anywhere. I don't see Tampa Bay Pro going anywhere. I don't see I can't remember, Brawl USA is still around. And that's an awesome, James does a great job over there. And of course you got Logan Cruz promoting. You've got the Cheese promoting shows. There's a lot of smaller companies, and I know I'll say the names of the companies wrong, so I won't say them. But they've started some companies over in the Tampa area that are coming across Central Florida. And I'm not worried because I think they're going to do a good job. there are a lot of guys that put on a good show, and I'm seeing a lot more fundraisers, and a lot more that, like it was a Christmas hope for the holidays. They just did a phenomenal toy drive show over in the Tampa area and raised so much money and gifts for kids over there. And I think we're going to see a return to that. I really do think the family friendly element and more inclusive wrestling is coming. It's not going to be all, mud show and hardcore. I think we're going to go back to the same way the WWE is. We're going to do that cycle.
I love that you just kind of rejuvenated my confidence in what's going on out there. So now that Ignite is done, you're all wrapped up. What are you doing to keep busy now?
Obviously, I'm cooking.
You are cooking. Yeah.
We had, sorry, choked myself. Let me get a drink. So we had a side company that started during Ignite called Ignite Eats. Ignite Eats is still going because that's something I can do here. And we're still selling the dry rubs, the hot sauce, the popcorn seasonings. We've got like 50, 60 t-shirt designs that we're shipping all over the country. And I'm doing that. I'm doing a lot of cooking reels. I'm just having a good time. I'm having a good time at home, and it's keeping me out of trouble. And my husband just brought me home a new appliance. And you guys will see it if you watch me on social media. I will be cooking with it, but it's fun because my husband and I, we love to cook. And the funny part is, a lot of people make jokes about me cooking so much about how heavy I'm getting. I've lost 25 pounds since the last Ignite show. So it's weird. The more I cook and the less stress that I have, the lighter I'm getting. And I'm thinner now than I was before I started Ignite. I'm lighter now. So I gained 30 pounds doing Ignite.
I think they say the stress is like the biggest cause, right?
I think it was a stress in the fact that I couldn't walk. Well, at one point I was told I was going to be in a wheelchair, and I was just like, I don't want to accept that one. Sorry. No, I'm not going to do that. But, thank God for DDP yoga. I'll say that.
Is that the secret, DDP yoga?
I've been doing DDP for years. I can't do the full workout, but they have modified workouts. That's the only reason I have the range of motion, the flexibility that I do have. Every day, DDP.
Wow. Okay.
Bang.
I just saw him like 3 weeks ago in North Carolina at a convention. He just looks.
Oh, he was at the WrestleCade.
Yeah, he was at WrestleCade. Such amazing shape.
He's
Such
so cool.
Amazing shape.
The funny story about that, because I actually, I used to write a sports column for the Gorilla Position, and I wrote an article about DDP yoga. He had hurt his back, and his wife did yoga at the time. I don't know if they're still married, but she was like, "Oh, you should try yoga." And he goes, "Yoga? Really?" So she had him like work, and he was like, "Oh my God, this shit's hard." But once he got into it and modified it, there are like, if you've never seen it, check it out. I mean, there is bed yoga, there's chair yoga, there's floor yoga, there's standing yoga. It's modified. It's made for people with injuries and limitations, and it's absolutely phenomenal. And I swear by it. It's the best thing I've ever done, and got to do it. Got to try it. You've got to do it. And they have a free trial. Go on their thing, get the free trial, try it for a week.
Okay. I've done like regular yoga. I had a friend of my wife's that was teaching yoga, and
it's not your mama's yoga.
No, it's not your mama's yoga. Okay.
That used to be a slogan. It's not your mama's yoga. That was his original slogan. But you'll be surprised when you go through the basics and learn to engage your muscles, how much you can do with just little motions.
Okay.
And there are workouts you can do sitting in like a folding chair.
Okay. And
there's like 80, 90-year-old guys on the videos doing these workouts. And I'm over here like sucking for air. And then little 80-year-old guys just gone to town. I'm like, I hate you, dude.
Okay. I promise you, I will give DDP yoga a shot. It's been on my list. I think a lot of guys probably went out and bought the DVDs back in the days, and they're probably still in the wrappers somewhere.
It is evolved. It's because
Right.
I started it many years ago, walked away from it, and then came back to it about 6 years ago, and started doing it about 6 years ago. And it's not the same. It's not the same because they've evolved it and they've learned a lot, and you can go through and like basically pick what you can do. And there's like multiple levels in each section. I mean, it's from people that are bedridden all the way to people that, they're like phenomenal athletes. I don't know if you know, the Iron Manager used to be Dave Chris, JT Davidson.
Okay, no, not familiar.
He used to manage Dave Chris. Now he manages Jake. He's actually he got really out of shape, and I love the guy, but he got really out of shape, So he started doing DDP because he was having trouble walking. He was out of breath. He was out of shape. He's to the point he's certifying as a trainer in DDP, and his total body transformation. I mean, he went from this guy that looked like he was going to stroke out ringside to looking like a worker. I mean, he's just ripped now. I mean, he's just, and Jericho does it. I mean, there's so many wrestlers that you look, if you actually read, that actually do it. Scott Hall, Jake the Snake's done it. And
that guy right there, phenomenal. Jake the Snake.
Jake the Snake.
Jake the Snake right there.
He's cool.
He is very cool.
So one day, I'm going to tell you my Jake the Snake story. One day I'm driving up US 1, and there is a poker run. And I look over and I see this line of motorcycles coming, and I'm driving and I go, is that Jake the Snake Roberts? So I turned around and followed the car. He was in a poker run, and I followed the bikes to where they stopped, and it was Jake the Snake Roberts.
It was Jake the Snake in the run. Okay.
Yeah, poker run.
How long ago was that?
Probably about maybe 4 years ago.
Really? Okay.
4 or 5. But it was like I just 180 and just chased his bikes down.
When I interviewed Jake the Snake at River City WrestleCon maybe 4 years ago, he was in such great shape. And then we saw him at New York City Comic-Con last year. He had the oxygen on when we saw him. But this year at WrestleCade, he didn't have the oxygen on again, which is fantastic because it's just love Jake the Snake so much that I love to see him doing well.
Yeah, he's had a struggle.
Yeah.
Awesome guy. Yeah. Just a total sweetheart, but he's had his demons.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the Ignite Eats. Where can people buy that lovely merchandise of yours?
IgniteEats.com.
There you go. Do you still have any like Ignite Wrestling merchandise left? Shirts, hats, trading cards? It's all gone.
We sold it. The trading cards, we did one last set of trading cards right before we closed, and it was our box set. And we have these phenomenal bunch of card collectors, wrestling trading cards and Husker Have trading cards, and I forgot the other one, but they were from all over the country in Canada and the UK. And I messaged them, and I was like, "Hey guys, I'm thinking about closing. I'm selling out." And they're like, "Will you give a discount?" I'm like, "Yeah." And they're like, "What do you have?" And I gave them my inventory, and it was like 6 guys. They bought everything that we had. I mean, they just, what's left, we'll take it.
Wow. Okay.
And, and we sold everything. I had trading cards back to the original sets that I'd done re-releases on. I mean, they bought everything. We sold like our inkjet printer that we did our transfers for merchandise and for our puzzles. We sold our puzzle sets. We had a wrestler that does merchandise. We sold a bunch of our equipment too. But yeah, the only thing I have left is some earrings. And honestly, I wear most of them, but I still have a couple necklaces and earrings, and that's all that's left. And 1 bottle of Inferno, which is going to, actually, this is going to the guy that, one of the car dealership salesmen had asked me for it. I'm supposed to run it down to him. But no, we sold everything. I had offers for the company, which were pretty freaking insulting. I had offers for the belts, which were pretty insulting. And that's all that's left. I mean,
Okay. Wow.
I sold the pipe and drape was sold to Trevor. Trevor Reed bought all of that. I just was like, hey, Trevor, would you be interested in it? I don't need it. I don't want it. The only thing I kept was the speaker because I'm keeping my party speaker because I like to annoy my neighbors. Mess with me, I'm going to play the rodeo song.
Mm. So Ignite, the chapter's closed. Literally, like everything has been sold, everything is done. You're
Yeah.
moving on. Um,
Eventually, the social media will shut down.
Okay.
What's kind of funny because you'll see it appear and then you'll see it disappear, and it kind of goes into whether people are being jerks and spamming us. Eventually, the social media will shut down because I keep explaining to people we're no longer doing shows, and they're like, "Well, what if?" No, there's not a what if situation here.
Yeah, because I did
It's
see on the website and it does say we are officially closed. I just wanted
officially.
officially closed. Well, what's in the future for Kim?
Kim is going to Kim is going to enjoy herself. I don't have my shirt on, but if you look on my actual social, I am going to be a culinary badass. So more cooking. Uh, I've got a couple cookbooks that are coming out. Some just I'm just going to enjoy myself. I got a birthday coming up. I'm going to kick back and I'm old. I'm very old. And if you've noticed, I don't know if you've noticed, have you noticed any other changes about me since the last time you saw me?
Well, the hair is definitely different.
The red hair's gone.
Right.
The red hair's gone, and I'm actually, yeah, this is actually my actual collar. I'm very
Okay.
gray.
Okay.
Yeah, I kind of let it go.
Hmm. Awesome. Are there any last words that you have for people?
The one thing I'll say the one thing that I've always said since I started: ignite your fire, follow your dreams.
Love it. Great message. Kim, it's always an honor. It was such a pleasure going to your shows. We absolutely loved them. We love the food trucks. We love the beer. We love the wrestling.
Love the
I love
beer.
spending over $100 at your merchandise table every single time. And I'm sure you
Sorry.
did too. But it was such a wonderful time. You were always so good to us. And this new segment is called Everybody Has a Story. And you're the first guest on there. I couldn't think of anybody else that I really want to put on here as my first guest. I have 5 other people lined up already for next week, for the next 2 weeks. You're the first guest. So definitely, I mean, it's an hour and 20 minutes already. It's the longest interview that I've
Sorry.
ever done. No, this is this is the point of the new segment is, I mean, you know how busy it gets and crazy it gets at the shows. Sometimes we only do 5-minute interviews and then they got to go. They got to get ready. You know, Chelsea Durden's grabbing Kelsey, say, hey, we have a match. We got to go, you know?
Yeah.
So this is the reason for the new format is to have these longer conversations, to have these longer interviews. And, it was fantastic. And I thank you so much for joining me here and taking just a little bit of your time to chat with us.
I appreciate it. And I appreciate you. I mean, I love that you came to our shows. I love that you promoted us in your interviews and everything, and that you're giving the wrestlers a chance to show who they are, be outside the ring. And I love anything that shows them a little glimpse of behind the scenes.
Right. That was
Yeah.
the whole point of starting the channel, really, was, you know, I work for a major media company and we cover everything, but anytime I
Yeah.
pitch a wrestling story, it always gets shut down. And I'm like,
Yeah.
it's time for me to take my passion, my love, and turn it into something. And you know, it's been well received and it's good. And you know,
Well, I'm honored that you asked me. It's a nice way for me to kind of wrap everything up.
awesome. Well, thank you so much, Kim. Do you want to let people know where they can find you, or is it just igniteeats.com?
Ignite Eats and you can always follow me at Kim Artlip. I'm on Instagram. I'm not super active, and I think if you look Kim Artlip on Facebook, I'm on Facebook. Check me out. I may not accept your friend request, but hit me up, say hi.
Yeah.
I only have like 125 friends on Facebook now. When I left wrestling, I cut everything down. I think you're one of my, you might be still one of my friends.
I hope so. We were just chatting on Messenger.
Because we're chatting. But when I stepped back, I really stepped back. I eventually will be on Twitch. The Ignite Wrestling channel is still on Twitch. I'm not sure what we're going to do with it, but have some fun. Check me out cooking.
There we go. Well, thank you, Kim, so much. Guys, thank you. Hopefully you've stuck around for this hour and 20-minute interview, because I enjoyed it. I hope you guys enjoyed it. So guys, if you like interviews like this with Kim Artlip, the owner of Ignite Wrestling, and thank you for all the memories and all the good times. Guys, make sure you stay tuned in here to Toned In Entertainment for future videos.
Subscribe to the channel. Do it. Go now. Do it now.